This is a tutorial for drawing from observation with watercolor. So you can see that I already have a sketch down. I was looking at a pair of scissors just laying on the table. And whenever I'm drawing or painting from observation, I want to make sure that the object that I'm looking at is right in front of me so I can look at it very closely and that it stays in the same position with close to the same lighting. I don't want to move it when I go from drawing to painting, or I want to remember exactly where it was so I can place it in the same spot. I'm looking through here now and I'm just lightly laying down where the shadows are going to be and then kind of making small circles where the highlights, where like the really white highlights are going to be. And then I'm going to use a resist technique with a white pencil and go in there and make a couple marks for those highlights. And you can see I'm not going overboard here. I'm not actually trying to add value. It's more of just so when I start working with watercolor, I don't have to think about it quite as much. It'll help me see exactly where my shadows need to be when I'm mixing it up. So here I grab that white pencil for a resist, and you could use something else for a resist, potentially wax or masking fluid. But I just got this pencil, and I'm making small white lines where I see a lot of reflection, and I want to make sure that I don't get any paint in that area. And the other thing, I want to be sure if you're using this pencil that you have it nice and sharp so that you don't have to go back and forth too many times and make a big white area, because you will not be able to fill that with color. It's going to remain white, so you want to make sure that it's nice and fine and precise, because that's what highlights look like. Now here I'm just practicing a couple different color combinations, mixing up orange into my red combination. And I just tried it on a little piece of scrap paper. And that's something that I really recommend that you guys do, and it could potentially save you some headaches by doing that. Now I'm going to start by doing a first pass through my shadows. And I want it to be light, and I want to use a fair amount of water so that it's really desaturated. And there you can see I used a little bit too much water. But you want it to be desaturated. You want it to kind of be see-through and really light, so that if you were to make a mistake, that you could easily cover it up. And this will just be like my first pass, and then I will work through in later passes and increase the saturation to get it as dark as I want it to be, to get the shadows dark, to get the reds really red. But I'll do that in a couple stages and not all at once. And this is a good technique for people that are kind of new to the medium, and will allow you a little bit of leeway if you were to make a mistake. All right, so you kind of saw how that turned out there, just working through there and incrementally increasing the saturation, and eventually you get to a place and it's starting to look pretty good. I think you're starting to see the deep reds and some good shadows. I'm gonna place it on a table now. I'm gonna make it So it's not just a floating scissors. I'm going to set it on a surface. And I mixed up a little bit of a darker brown for like the wood grain. And then I'm going to use a glaze technique with a really light yellow over those lines that I made. And hopefully those show through a little bit. And then the yellow fills in around it, and you'll kind of get the illusion of that wood grain table. And then a really cool part that you don't want to forget here is going to be the shadow. That's what's really going to make it look like it's sitting on that table. And I'm just mixing up some gray here, and I'm going to place that where my shadows need to be. Now, I just laid down that table color, that light yellow. So the gray is going to be a wet on wet technique. So it's going to diffuse quite a bit. It's going to have a pretty soft effect, which works too, especially for a shadow, because shadows are kind of soft. But there are some areas that I do want more defined edges. So I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to let the paint dry, and then I'll do kind of a final pass where I make those edges a little bit harder where they need to be, a little bit crisper, a little bit more detailed. And I just need to let my paint dry for that. But here you go. Here's the final image. And your guys' assignment now is to find some sort of object to draw from observation. And I want you to try to find an object that suits your skill level, something that suits your ability, an object that is a good challenge for you, but not something that's so challenging that you won't be able to complete it. So there you go. Let me know if you need help deciding on an object to draw / paint from observation. And if you feel like you have it under control, then go ahead and get started, and good luck.